we're segments of ligaments and tendons and muscles and joints for a reason. If not, we'd be a big old brain, maybe a little bitty heart and lungs, and then maybe not a whole lot of muscle if it was just really adapted to today's life in a lot of ways. We just use cars and electronics to get around. We wouldn't actually have to use our body to do that. So I think we've sold things a little bit too intense, a little bit too much, and a little bit too extreme, especially for people over 60. They're already tired. They're already dealing with aches and pains. So you put them through this grueling workout that makes them tired and in more pain. You're not doing them the actual justice of teaching them what a proper baseline level of movement can do in the beginning to get them to a point to where maybe they could train hard if they want to. We just are going to have a hard time until we figure it out and accept that movement has to be a part of our lives. It has to be a piece of our daily activity.
Welcome to Only the Greatest Podcast. If you're feeling stuck and unsure what to do next in your fitness journey, we might be what you're looking for. My name is Philip. I own and operate OTG Fitness, which is a private personal training gym on the south side of Houston in Webster. I do this podcast every week with my best friend, Daryl. We've been friends since third grade and working out together ever since. Also joining us today will be Sean. He's the one that makes this podcast not only sound great, but look good as well. Our goal here is to help Houston make its way up the ladder of health and fitness. So if you're in the Houston area and ready to become the greatest version of yourself, be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Jake Trione is a 19-year member of the United States Coast Guard, ISSA Master Trainer, FAI Functional Aging Specialist, and co-owner of Trifitness Gym. He has spent the last decade of his life committed to learning about and working with the older adult community. In today's conversation, we focus on why fitness is important in the 50-plus population, what is different about their approach, and what type of results someone of this age can expect. If you happen to find value in the information from this episode or know someone that needs to hear it, please share this with them and leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you happen to hear it on. Jake, thanks so much for being on the show today, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Philip. I'm excited to share.
Yeah. Well, why don't you start off by telling us, obviously Trifitness, you guys focus on the aging population. What got you started with that demographic of people?
I'm kind of an older soul. I just kind of grew up in a Italian meat market in Delhi that my dad had for over 100 years. And so I was always around adults. I was that guy that would go to your friend's house and hang out with your mom.
Okay, like you said, hanging out with your friend.
I want adult conversation. That's just kind of how I am. I was just always I kind of wanted to grow up fast. I think it was the situation I was at. I kind of just always wanted to be in that realm with the older adults in my childhood. So as I got into the local gym and got into more training, it just kind of more or less gravitated towards older adults. And so I figured out I better get intelligent on how they live and the things that they're dealing with and the way to train them. And so I went back to school and just continue to kind of follow that path, and I really love it. It really is my passion. You just don't get the same level of dedication that you're going to get from an older adult, especially because they have more time, they have more resources, and a lot of them are at their wits' end for being able to live their lives again, fully active and engaged.
Yeah, they probably are very serious about what they're doing. They want a specific result. They know what they want. Right.
That matters a lot.
And then they're going to go for it, right?
Yeah, if you're legit and you actually have a product that can help them and you know how to communicate and you know how to stay in front of them and stay engaged, they're going to give you an opportunity. And I've had every, level of client come through the door, from somebody who was, prior marathon runner to somebody who was just coming off the couch, and being able to adapt and adjust to them and their wants and their needs and their goals has been pretty eye-opening for me that I've been able to do that. And I think it's just kind of a gift, more or less, that I have to be able to adapt to each person and what they're dealing with and just try to meet them in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. Let's start with that, the person coming off the couch that you mentioned. So, let's, we have, someone in their 60s, never exercised before. Maybe somebody listening to this that hasn't exercised before and they're not moving as good as they could. They can't do some things that they want to. Let's just talk about why fitness is important for this demographic of people.
Yeah, to me, I think fitness is their avenue to freedom. It's their avenue to independence. It's the way that they can continue to live the life that they want to live freely and fully. And unfortunately, there's so many things after 50 that continue to limit you, and we continue to fall down that hill if we don't do something about it. So I tell people all the time, it's not only what you gain, it's what you keep. And after 50, you start to lose a lot of your capabilities. You lose your VO2 max. It goes down. Your muscle mass goes down. Your testosterone, even your estrogen changes. So if you're not doing something to counteract that, you're really kind of on a roller coaster heading down, down, down a lot faster than somebody in their 20s and 30s.
Why do you think it is that this subset of people don't always know these types of things? Don't you think it's important? Don't you think people of this age should know this stuff by now? But it's pretty obvious that a lot of people don't, right?
I honestly think that in a lot of ways, the fitness industry doesn't do a very good job of educating exercise when it comes to like homeostasis or quality of life or longevity. We spend a lot of time focusing on aesthetics or spend a lot of time focusing on sports performance, but we don't necessarily tell the story of this being able to be the way that you maintain your capabilities. And it's not the only reason, but I also think our older adults grew up in an area, in an environment where exercise was kind of vanity. They were physical already as kids. Most of them were playing sports or engaged in something. So to go do that was seen in a lot of ways as vanity. So they just don't do it for that reason. They don't see it for that health actual aspect of it.
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking. I was going to ask your opinion on this. That now in today's world and today's culture, we have to set aside time for our health, for our fitness. We have to set aside time to go to the grocery store to cook. It has to be on the agenda, right? But maybe when these people were younger, it wasn't that way. Their life was built in a different way. So I'm not saying that they were set up for failure in their older age, but what I'm saying is it's just not on the forefront the way that it is now. Do you think that plays a big factor?
I think it plays a big factor, and I think we have to look at society. We are so cerebral now. Our lives are so cerebral. Most of what we do is a mental game. There's not a whole lot of physical activity involved in most people's daily jobs. And so what that leads to is fatigue, because your brain uses a ton of your energy, but you're not getting any of the homeostasis of the actual movement with your lymphatic system, with making sure that you're getting enough endocrine attention. So your body's not getting that more or less stimuli that it needs to maintain those capabilities of health, of homeostasis when it comes to what movement does. And we're built to move. Mm-hmm. You know, we're segments of ligaments and tendons and muscles and joints for a reason. If not, we'd be a big old brain, you know, maybe a little bitty heart and lungs, and then maybe not a whole lot of muscle if it was just really adapted to today's life in a lot of ways. We just use cars and electronics to get around. We wouldn't actually have to use our body to do that. So I think we just are going to have a hard time until we figure it out and accept that movement has to be a part of our lives. It has to be a piece of our daily activity.
Yeah, and for a lot of these seniors, they're in a place now where bodily function maybe is degrading a little bit, but they're in an environment where everything can be given and they are allowed to continue that if they don't to go out of their way to fix it. And you mentioned, you know, muscle mass starts to go down, hormones start to go down, VO2 max starts to fall. Can you speak a little bit about why that's important?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that you have a possibility and you have the option to slow these things. You have the opportunity to reverse a lot of these things through exercise. Exercise is the closest thing we have to the fountain of youth. If we could put it in pill form, everybody would be taking it and we'd all be wonderful forever. And again, I'll kind of come back a little bit to the overall aspect of the fitness industry is we've sold things a little bit too intense, a little bit too much, and a little bit too extreme, especially for people over 60. And they're already tired. They're already dealing with aches and pains. So you put them through this grueling workout that makes them tired and more in more pain. You're not doing them the actual justice of teaching them what a proper baseline level of movement can do in the beginning to get them to a point to where maybe they could train hard if they want to, but it's not required for them to actually just maintain quality of life.
Yeah, I've even seen that even in the younger demographic. I'd say at our gym, the majority of our clientele are, I guess you could say, you know, young adults to middle age. So we have a lot of like late 20s to late 40s is probably the main demographic that we have. We have some older ones as well. But even then, a lot of them have avoided exercise because they think it's this super hard, grueling, hours long situation. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No. It's been sold that way, though. Yeah. It's not even just their fault. When you still look at Instagram, you're looking at the top 0.2% of people who usually have some sort of support in a lot of ways, whether that's another coach or whether that's somebody by their side that's teaching them, and then they're already genetically gifted. And then you go into a gym and you're like, oh, man, there's no way I can compete with these people. I don't feel comfortable in here, so I'm just going to go home. And that's the one thing that we really focus on in the way we approach things. We try to make it an even playing field for everybody that walks through our door, so they don't feel intimidated. They don't feel out of place. They don't feel like they have to keep up with anybody but themselves.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking something that I have to deal with and talk to people a lot about is when they're looking on Instagram at these people, that is the 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
It's the top notch.
Yeah.
That's why they're getting attention.
And if you weren't on social media, you would, in your everyday life, you would never meet someone that looks like that.
You probably wouldn't see them with their shirt off either like that.
Exactly.
Either.
That's something that I deal with. Can you tell me maybe something relatable about,
for the older adults?
Yeah,
I think
for the older adults.
Even in the marketing for older adult fitness, they're showing a lot of the cream of the crop. They're showing like the actual older adults who are part of the senior games or who are doing something like that. Or the one lady who was doing gymnastics since she was 6, right? And now she's 96, and you might have seen this before. She's like on, parallel bars at 90 years old and just killing it. And that takes an immense body. I can't even get on the parallel bars for more than 3 seconds and hold it like a full V-sit or whatever, right? So it's the same exact thing in a lot of ways. And unfortunately, in society, we tend to go to the extreme opposite. So when we see something that's so extreme in one way, we just totally get turned off completely. So we just shut down to it. And that's led to, I think, a lot of what we're facing right now in every age, not just older adults, but even younger kids. Like if you're intimidated, because you're at a really good high school that has a great basketball team and you just love playing basketball, you go out on the court, you get demolished, you're never coming back.
That's right. Yeah, and it is unfortunate that we see that in our industry quite a bit. I wouldn't think that you'd see that in the older adults, but you're saying that we do?
You do. It's in the marketing. It's just sensationalized, right? Everything has to be sensationalized in this day and age, and it's just not getting attention if it's not. So that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about how it should look. Like, what should the process of getting in shape, for someone that's a little older, maybe they worked out a little bit, like high school, college. It's been 30, 40 plus years since they really did much. What should that approach look like for someone like that?
I think first it needs to be personal. I mean, we do small group personal training, but I do an assessment that's extremely personal. I just did a 90-minute assessment, and the thing that I'm trying to gather is where they're at that current moment. What is their health history overall? What is their current health history, like current health state? What have they done for fun? What have they done with exercise? Have they ever had a trainer in the past? What do they like to do? What are their dislikes? Trying to figure out how they should be approached as a human being, first off. I think that's the most important thing, period. Get rid of fitness, actually get to know them, show them you care. The way we do it is I literally call it caring, connecting, coaching. That's what we offer. And so during our actual assessment, I'm trying to figure out how much this person is going to allow me in, because then that relationship actually leads to change. And so I think first off, it has to be a personal approach to the individual. And then when it comes to fitness after 50, if you kind of want to talk about that, it just has to be understanding the contraindications, understanding the correctives of every condition. And if you don't know it, go look it up. Nobody's walking around with all that knowledge in their head. You know a baseline, you take your notes, you do a good enough assessment, and if they have blood pressure issues, you just know pretty quickly over time that they don't need to be going up and down quickly. They don't need to be holding their breath. You should not be teaching them, a power lift, Valsalva maneuver, if they have high blood pressure problems. They're just things that you start to gather and you start to grasp over time, and you can apply it daily to that demographic. But they can be trained like any other demographic, just within their actual realm of conditions and their realm of capability. And the more that they learn, the better they get, the more you push them. It's just like any other demographic.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before we even hit record, we were talking about like why we do the podcast and stuff. And I told you, well, half of it is I just get to learn myself.
That's awesome.
And right now I'm taking a lot of mental notes, and I'm going to be replaying this and using a lot of this information because, if you're listening to this now and you don't know Jake and maybe you don't know us or whatever, we do fairly similar things.
Very
right?
similar, yeah.
Jake specializes in an older adult, and we specialize in people of all ages, but most of them are a little younger, right?
Yeah.
And I'm learning a lot from things that you're saying. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to share it because we shouldn't be afraid. I think that's one of the things that, when you're afraid of a person or you're afraid of a culture, you're afraid of whatever it is, you're less willing to learn about it. You're less open to actually letting it into your own purview. But the more that we understand that somebody who's 80 can be trained smartly, just like somebody who's 8, you fall down when you're 8, you fall down when you're 80. Problem is it hurts a little more when you're 80.
Right. Yeah, right.
So you don't put handcuffs on individuals because of who they are or their background or their age or whatever it is. So I think that's the biggest thing is getting to talk about it and getting to share it and getting to spread it. It can make more trainers and can make a lot more fitness professionals effective when it comes to training this population.
Because of what you led with after I asked you the question, that personal piece is so important.
It's extremely important.
One thing that I tell a lot of clients when they come to the gym is that I understand that you may not and probably won't ever love fitness as much as I do.
True.
And I'm okay with that. But I need you to allow me to tap into your life a little bit and help you understand what is the minimum effective dose
exactly
that I can help you reach to get your life where you want it. Whether that is to bench press X amount or squat X amount, I understand that that's not like a specific tangible goal for you, but it has something to do with these other goals that you have. And I'm assuming that in an older adult, those things are extremely important.
Yeah.
Because some of the things they can or can't do are just directly related to the amount of muscle they have, the amount of power and strength that they have. So, do you ever see people come to you with very low abilities?
Oh yeah, we work with people that have had strokes. We work with people who have Huntington's disease. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's that? They describe Huntington's disease. It's a neurological disease, a muscular disease. There's a lot going on, but it's like having I can't remember exactly. It's like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and like MS all at one time. So you're dealing with all these different muscular and kind of neurological diseases that limit you in an extreme way. And we have an individual, he's 42. Just kind of a tragic story. The guy played 9 instruments. He could speak Chinese, all kind of different things. He was doing really well in his life, and just kind of saw that he started to have detriment in his abilities, but he's very limited due to that condition. But my biggest thing is I'm going to give everybody a chance. If you come through the door, I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to try to train you. I'm going to do my best to try to help you to understand what you can and cannot do, and then I'm going to take those capabilities and I'm going to enhance them every session. Mm-hmm. That's what we require our coaches to do. If you're not trying to get them 2% better that day, 3% better, whatever it is that they're allowing in that moment and their body's allowing, then you're doing them injustice. And it's the same thing with an age. If somebody comes in, we have probably 4 or 5 90-plus-year-olds now. I think our oldest current client's 94. And she comes in with her cane. I put the cane up and I put her to work, and she does it. But she does it when she has somebody next to her giving her confidence.
That's right. So important.
Yeah, and assistive devices are okay. A cane is an assistive device. A wheelchair is an assistive device. A walker is an assistive device. And those are all great things to help you get around in this world that doesn't really cater or adapt to you very well. But when you get in my gym, there are no labels. You're getting to work. Whatever your level of ability is, I'm putting you to work. And that's just kind of how we do things. It's not a sit and be fit. It's not a silver this, and that's kind of why we do small group, because I do need to be able to give a little bit of a personal level of attention, but I also want you seeing other people like you that also have capabilities and they can do it too. So that gives you confidence.
It sounds like what you're doing is you're focusing on what people can do.
Exactly.
Versus what they can't
100%. I see your capabilities, not your incapabilities.
So when people come to you, I'm assuming that they're telling you, because this happens to me as well, but in your case, it's probably even more. They're telling you all the things they can't do. How does that conversation look? How do you change their mindset into focusing on the things that they can do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of tools. One of my certifications was a brain health certification, and it was kind of facilitated through the Functional Aging Institute, and they give us a lot of different resources, but one of the resources is called Expectations Regarding Aging. And it's a little 12-question questionnaire, and it's really subjective, but it's broken down into physical, kind of your emotional, social support, and then your overall mental and how aging affects that. And it asks them how they feel about it, from like they're very affected to not very affected. So that opens the door because they're like, wow, that was pretty subjective. I'm not sure it's, directed towards me. And I'm like, well, think about these things. And when you think about the body, not everybody's aging the same. Not every 60-year-old is aging just like every other 60-year-old. Problem is we throw everybody in the bucket, right? Because we as business owners, we have to market to somebody. You market to nobody.
That's right.
Right? So we're just throwing them in this bucket, and we're just like, oh, we do the 50-plus. Well, you think every 50-plus-year-old that comes through my door is the same? No
way.
Not at all. So that at least kind of opens the door to what they're dealing with. Because you might not know it. You might be sitting across the table from a widower. He may be a 70-year-old man who looks like he's in great shape, but he's depressed out of his mind. So that kind of allows me to kind of get that understanding of where they're at and start to see where his overall mental blocks are, where his physical blocks, whichever he feels most of. And then we go into the rest of that assessment where he tells me about his injuries and surgeries and all those types of things. And then we go into the movement piece, and we do sometimes I use the functional movement screen. Sometimes I use a senior fitness test battery. Usually I'm using a conglomerate of all of them. Mm-hmm. And I've just done it for so long that I just adjust to the person in that moment.
And I'm assuming that the conversation about seeing others is very important. So can you kind of speak on the importance of that social piece, of seeing other people that are capable, whether they're in a depressed mental state or a depressed physical state?
Yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate the power of seeing a colleague that you can relate to right next to you that's doing something that you didn't think you could. It's just so inspiring, right? It's just us having this conversation. We're like, oh, we're doing a lot of the same things. So then you spark something, well, I might try that. If Philip can do it, Jake can do it. And I think it's the same thing inside the gym. If, I bring a 70-year-old male and there's another 70-year-old male in there and he's already on the Airdyne bike back there kicking butt, and he's like, well, I didn't know if I could do that. And then he tries it and he's like, well, I can. So I think it's getting them to understand that we are an environment that is allowing them to understand what they are capable of. We're going to keep them safe. If they don't want to do it, I don't push them. Mm-hmm. It's not a pushy environment at all. We look at it as like coach to like player type relationship. So I'm the coach, I'm on the sideline. You're the player, you're on the field of life. So if you can learn these moves and you can start to apply these things, then I can add more challenge to you, or I can add more, I guess, more or less difficulty for that exercise itself to you. But it takes them getting around that environment and starting to feel comfortable with other people who look like them, doing things that they don't think they can do. And then they're saying, well, Jake, maybe I want to try that exercise. So I think a lot of it does it for itself. I try not to put too much pressure on myself or them day one or even during the assessment, because then it can become overwhelming to try to meet a need when the environment's going to provide that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So many of the things that you're saying, I see it every day, like in our settings as well. Why do you think I don't know if it's our culture or what it is, something here in America, in the United States, why do we think that elderly people can't? Everyone thinks that way, not just themselves. Younger people think that of them also.
Yeah, I mentioned this before, but ageism is a real thing. Just like racism, just like sexism, just like any other ism. It's really just a judgment that we've started to put on ourselves, and we all adopted. We've adopted this ideal that age makes you limited, and it stops you from being able to live your lives. But when you look around, again, people don't all age the same. Some people live to 100, some people live to 70. But the more that we all agree that that's the way it should be, that's kind of where we're stuck. And I think society has changed so much when it comes to the way that we age, and it comes to the way that we're engaged in our environments, that you can't look at our older adults the way we looked at them 20 years ago. You cannot. My grandparents did want to kind of just sit back and relax after they retired and be by themselves, but most people are now trying to retire in their 50s and 60s. They want to go travel. They want to go see the world. They want to be out there doing things because they've been introduced to all of it through the internet, through having access to everything at the palm of their hands. So they're like, wow, this is what Dubai looks like. I want to go to Dubai. And I think those types of things have really sparked that, hey, we can do more no matter what age we're at, and we have freedom and we have these opportunities. But at the same time, as a society, if we don't start to change the way that we treat our older adults or offer more access in our environments, then we're going to cause more people to be limited and just continue to push people down that hill of saying, oh, I'm over the hill, or that's my old lady. Like those terms right there are just bad. And I'm not going to, bring specific terms on, when it comes to sexism or racism or anything else, but those types of terms are detrimental to your psyche, whether you believe it or not. Words are power, and they become basically who you are and what you do. And if you start to say I'm over the hill or I'm the old man, unfortunately, we've put a label on that. That means you're incapable.
Yeah, labeling is very dangerous.
Yep.
Is there anything that you think we can do, like you and I as individuals within the industry, and then also just like kind of just anyone, like what do we need to do to start moving in the right direction?
I think we adopt something that allows us to adapt to the person and more knowledge of the condition of an aging body. And we're adapting to a woman, we're adapting to a man, we're adapting to a child, we're adapting to somebody who might come in that has a knee pain, we're adapting to somebody that comes in and might have high blood pressure. So why can't you adapt to the older adult the exact same way? Don't look at them as some subset. That's not okay. It's the same way. You're separating them out from society. So we need to treat them like they are and adapt to them and learn how to be more intelligent. We need to be better at our jobs, to be honest, instead of just getting a weekend certification saying, I can't train people over 50. I don't have that certification. Mm-hmm. And then as the certification bodies, we start to actually ask these things of our trainers to learn more and actually be able to apply it. And, honestly, they aren't as fragile, anywhere near as fragile as you think an older adult would be. And the people that I'm training, you could come to the gym, you can look at my Facebook page, anything else. I'm training people that you would look at and discount automatically. And not to say I don't have some of those kind of natural things too every now and then. And I mean, it's even like on a plane now. Like if I see somebody and, I'm from the South, right? You help everybody, especially, your older adults, that are around. You're supposed to be there to support them. But I give them chances now because I know that people are starting to pay attention to this. People are starting to understand this. So, educating yourself and then starting to apply that in your daily life can totally change the entire thing. So if they're going to put their bag overhead, let them do it. Yeah. Don't try to go out and help if they don't need it.
Yeah, let them do what they can do. And I think that's when what you're doing is so important because I think and I might be wrong about this, but I think that everybody needs role models. So if we get away from, seniors being these people that can't do anything, we need to get them stronger, get them more fit. Then younger people will see them doing things like, whoa. Because right now, you have to admit, it's kind of an anomaly. If you see an older person doing something on their own like that and they're able to do it easily, you're like, whoa. It should be kind of normal.
It should be.
Right, yeah. But it's not.
Well, I think hopefully we start to move closer to that. There's a really cool book called This Chair Rocks. I'm really into reading, really into podcasts, really into trying to educate myself. But the book was suggested to me by one of my clients, and it's called This Chair Rocks, and it's about ageism. And it's about how we can change the way that we look at things. I mean, it's as much as like looking at, as you get older, sexuality, those types of things. And it's like when I'm 70, I still want to be able to have those conversations. I want to have fun. I want to live my life and still do everything that a human should be able to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the truth. If I'm lucky, I'm going to be 70. So I'm trying to create a world that I want to live in. And that has a lot to do with the way I coach, and why I push the way I push. It's because I believe in these people and I know they have the capability, and I'd rather them be doing something they love, something they're excited about, and leave this earth in that moment than be sitting on the couch for 20 years hating themselves and not being able to be engaged with the things they love and want to do.
Yeah. As you're speaking about that, like not doing the things that they want to do, I'm thinking both of my grandparents passed away very young. Both of them were in their early 60s. One passed away from COPD. Very, very difficult way to go, Yeah. Smoker their whole life. Very active, younger, but not so much towards the end. But my grandmother is really the one that I'm really thinking of right now. She was, man, I'd be lying, maybe 63, 64 when she passed away. I'd say the last 5 to 10 years was little to zero activity.
Yeah,
and I think about that often, to be honest, but I'm really thinking about it right now. And I was very young at the time, right? I was, maybe from the age of, I lived with my grandparents actually from the age of 10 until when they passed away. And I think I was like maybe 17 or 18 when my grandmother passed away. So those 7-8 years, I really saw her not doing very much.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and to me, same way with me. I don't have good health history in my family. Genetics aren't that great. My mom died of cancer just kind of at 63 or 64. Didn't even know she was sick. 11 days later, she was gone. Both of my grandmothers died fairly young. My grandfather passed away before I was even alive on my dad's side. My mom's side, I didn't really know him much. But same type of situation, right? And seeing it, and I think it's just, again, it comes back to not having access, not being educated, not understanding that a little bit of movement can go a long way, and really finding your passion and purpose for it. And it's really just to me, the big block, I think, is the fact that the accessibility is just really not there, and people don't understand what they can and can't do for themselves.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it more and more, and I don't know for a fact, but thinking back, now that I'm adult and I can think about the actions that she took and stuff towards those last kind of 5 years of her life, there was just no thought of, or no passion of what to do or even why to do it or anything like that. Do you have people, maybe their family members, make them come see you when they're in situations like that? Is that something you deal with?
Yeah, but there are massive breakthroughs, Philip. I mean, I think that's the thing. When I get somebody in there and I show them how strong they are and I show them how capable they are, just think about you. After a workout, nothing can really mess with you really for a couple hours at least. I'm like, I ain't worried about you.
Hell yeah.
I just went in there and tried to kill myself, and you're not going to be able to do it. And I'm doing the same thing for my clients, right? And then they go out into the world and like, I'm 75 years old and I just kicked that sled's butt.
Yes.
And then they're coming back out. I mean, when you start to do that, everything changes. I used to work inside Alzheimer's facilities, and when I used to go in there and train them, one of the things I realized is that I would alter their physiology, whether they knew it or not, for 3 to 6 hours after every session. They would be easier to deal with for all the caregivers. They would sleep better. There's just so many things that happen physiologically if you can just get people past their own mental barriers and blocks and everything else and our own ignorance. You change their lives. And like for me, I think that's where my passion comes through. And it's like, hey, let's just do this. Let's get this going, or just kind of distract them long enough with intelligence or dad jokes or whatever works. And and that's part of our kind of our business model. We do that. Like I ask my coaches to look up dad jokes and things like that to get engaged. But I mean, I've had people sit down and grill me. I had a guy, he sat down, me and him talked, he's an engineer. Me and him talked for like, an hour and a half, and I just kept pulling and pulling. He kept telling me what he was doing for himself. He kept telling me all these other things. And then after he was done, I looked at him in the eyes and I said, well, how's that worked out for you? He had 2 shoulder surgeries. He had basically 1 shoulder replaced, which you don't really see. He had 2 knee replacements, and he was like, I guess it hadn't worked out that well.
Yeah.
I was like, well, why don't you give me a shot for a month and let's see what happens. And now one of my coaches has gone further into some NKT training and a lot of other stuff, some neurokinetic stuff. And he's asking him to come to his house to help him to actually improve his overall capabilities and things that he's dealing with. And that's the type of stuff that you'll never know until you get into the trenches and you start trying to give yourself to these people as fully as you can and be engaged. And it's life altering if we get somebody in for 8 sessions in a month.
Yeah, the first step's always the hardest, the admittance and then the getting in there, the doing it. And then it's kind of funny too. I don't know who you're talking about, right? But I'm imagining the person. I feel like I know the person. They're almost like, damn it, he got me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's
exactly.
one of those kind of people,
Yeah.
And then when he's actually going, he's like, damn it, I got to tell Jake that he was right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
One of those types of personalities, Well, what kind of results can these people expect to get? Maybe this is an ageism thing coming from me.
That's okay.
A lot of people think that at an older age, you can't get results, or you can't get the same type of results and stuff like that. I'd like to hear your take on, it's too late.
Well, that's 100% false, first off. And we are changing lives. In 8 sessions, we're seeing people's entire ability to move throughout their everyday life change in 8 sessions. And I wouldn't have told you that 6 years ago before I started my first gym. I didn't know you could do that because I'm come from the background of we've got to train 5 days a week. You got to make sure you're getting these hours. You got to make sure you're getting this time in. But if somebody hasn't done a whole lot, their operating system is not there. They don't have the actual mind-muscle connection to tell that brain to tell the actual muscle to do what it needs to do. So we bring them in and teach them how to move again. You give them access back to life. We have a guy I can think of right now. He came in. He would not basically step past midfoot. So when he was stepping, it was just like this, very tiny steps. He wouldn't step past midfoot. Within 8 sessions, we had him full stride, never thinking about it. He was coming in the gym looking for something to grab a hold of as soon as he walked in. He'd look around trying to grab a hold of something. We didn't have anything. The front's open for a reason. You got to come in, you got to move.
What did you call him earlier? The cane is a what?
Yeah, it's an assisted device, right? Yeah, and he refused. He was so proud of himself, he wouldn't even use that, but he just wouldn't walk. If you were trying to get him into the gym from the parking lot, it would take him 10 minutes. And it was just because he fell one time. And I'm not trying to talk bad about the situation because this happens a lot. It's a lot of fear. Once you fall, you're fearful of falling because you get told of what happens. You get pneumonia and then you die. And unfortunately, when pretty much anybody over 60 goes into a hospital, if they go in on the gurney and they don't walk in and have any assessment, they're automatically going to get a fall risk bracelet. And it's an ageism thing. And that automatically labels them. So now he feels like he's a fall risk. So getting him out of the fear zone, so you basically have to get over an entire block for them to actually get past their fears. That's a big problem with this demographic. They're afraid of, the doctors told them not to lift more than 10 pounds, which is complete BS as well, because if you don't do that, you can't reverse osteoporosis. Do you think they're carrying their groceries in the house? Do you think they're picking up gallons of milk? Do you think they're doing all these things every day? They're already doing that. You're not stopping them from living their lives. They're just going to put that label on themselves. And whenever you ask them to say, hey, why don't you carry these 20-pound kettlebells, go walk, we're going to do a farmer's carry. Oh, a doctor told me I can't do more than 30. Well, guess what? You've been doing it for 3 weeks, and I didn't even tell you. Because they're just not trained on biomechanics. They're just not trained on those things. And the doctor means well. He's trying to come from a place of his knowledge and make sure he keeps his clients safe. But if you're not loading up a woman who has osteoporosis in a good way and helping her carry and move and being able to stay functional, you're not letting her live.
Yeah, you're doing her a disservice.
You're 100% on.
Not allowing her to progress in the area where she needs the most work. We had a recent situation like that as well at our gym. So seeing those types of stories is just amazing.
And I understand where they come from. I did a presentation yesterday for Methodist in Friendswood, so basically Houston Methodist, all their PTs, and was explaining basically the exact same thing we do and how we alter from, if they're going to leave PT, where do you send somebody over 60? There's really not any place structurally that has the knowledge base to help them to stay strong.
Yeah, if they're like beyond physical therapy.
Yeah, well, it's not even that they're beyond, they've finished.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they're dealing with these conditions, and they have high blood pressure, and they had a knee replacement, and they're, a candidate for shoulder surgery. You're just going to send them to a regular gym with a barbell, and then all of a sudden now they've torn the other shoulder because the barbell was too much. And they, and a barbell is an assisted device. If you don't have range of motion all the way to here and you throw a barbell in their hand, what's going to happen to the other shoulder? It's not going there, and now you're smashing all the muscles or you're tearing them. Yeah. Right. So, it's unilateral work, things like that. Having the knowledge of doing the assessments, it's just not as much out there in our industry, so I get why doctors do that. But what does bone-on-bone mean? Give me something. Give me something real. Do they have a meniscus problem? Is there an issue with the MCL, the ACL, the PCL? Are they dealing with arthritis? Guess what the one thing for arthritis that actually improves it? Movement. And it is an oxymoron because movement's painful when you have arthritis, but it's the number one thing that relieves arthritis is motion is lotion.
Over time.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting your approach to this because, older adults is not my specialty, but I have talked to people about it before. I've had several conversations, and I'll say that your confidence in the things that these people can do, your lack of fear to help push them is the first I've heard. Have you developed this just because you've seen it so much?
Well, first off, I'm coming from a place of love, everything I do. That's the first thing I knew 2012 when I started doing this, or in the Coast Guard when I started doing this in 2007. I'm always going to try to do my best for that person in front of me. I'm going to treat them like my grandmother or my grandfather and really try to hold them in love and respect. And then second, I'm going to try to get them better. And as a trainer, I know there's only really one way to do that, and that's to push their limits. So guess what? Whenever my 65-year-old kept pushing her limits, and I was like, oh, well, I guess she can do this. She's one of my coaches now, a lady I'm thinking of, but she's at 70 now, and she's a coach for me. But whenever she could do, a hanging leg raise with 12-pound, medicine ball and then get on the ground and do push-ups right after it at 65, I was like, wow, I need to open my mind up and actually start to see things for what they are instead of letting all these labels stop me.
Yeah, because every conversation I've ever had about movement in an older adult is always careful, all this, like you brought up statistics and stuff, but in a positive light, where it's usually in a feared light. Hey, people over 60, when they go into the hospital, there's a really high likelihood that they don't come out. And like I'm saying that with fear, but when you say it, you say it just in a different tonality, in a different manner.
And I could speak on 5 or 6 different people in the back of my mind right now that have shown me that. We have a lady who, if you looked at her just straightforward right now, she came to us after a widowmaker. So that's basically a heart attack that should have killed her, right? And it's usually happened to men, but it happened to her. And she has pretty strong dowager's hump, basically, which means her upper spine and kyphosis, all kind of spinal narrowing and spinal curvature that has her kind of looking down. She's very small stature, came in with osteoporosis. We've turned the hip from osteoporosis to osteopenia. And to be able to reverse that in a woman that basically maybe weighs 105 pounds is pretty impressive. But on top of that, 2 stories. She was trying to do something on her middle island in her kitchen, fell, fractured both her wrists. She got up, came back. She was in the gym within 6 to 8 weeks. This lady's in her 70s. Okay, so like you said, but life happens. I could fall on my ladder today when I go home.
So true.
Right,
Yeah,
but the fact is, when somebody's strong and resilient and they have some muscle mass, they come back. But if they're not healthy and they're not in a good place when they go in, whether they're 20 or whether they're 120, they may not come back. It may become a disability. And I don't want accidents to become disabilities for my clients. So, and then this is even worse. So the same lady, they were at IAH going to pick up her daughter, who's an occupational therapist who actually trained with us for a while. Her husband was kind of in front of her in a hurry, and there was an uncovered manhole at IAH.
Ooh.
This lady, full speed, fell in a manhole.
Oh, my gosh.
And came out of it, though. She was back in the gym within 8 weeks. And things like that inspire me. They push me. They drive me. It's a disservice just talking about our grandparents. If I would have been able to get some of this stuff over to where I'm from in South Alabama, maybe before some of my family passed, it might have made a difference. And that's what drives me. That's what motivates me. That's why I want to continue to push forward with what we do.
And that being said, what is, long-term with what you do? Like, where do you, obviously you guys special in the active adults. What do you see next for yourself, for this demographic of people, and the way that Trifitness can help them?
Yeah, I mean, I see more possibilities. Here's a couple stats. So basically, we're about to be the largest 75-plus demographic we've ever had in the history of our country. And there's 10,000 people a day turning 65 in the U.S., and we're not prepared whatsoever. And our healthcare system's doing its best, but it just can't keep up. We're short geriatricians. We're short nurses. And if you've ever been in the hospital with anybody, my dad's a liver transplant patient, so I've spent a lot of time in the hospital with him. My mom, like I said, cancer. Nurses take care of people. And if we don't have enough nurses, what happens?
People don't get taken care of.
They get neglected. And the older we're getting means that based off our current level of approach to fitness and our current level of approach to life, older adults need the doctor more, right? And I still think we could discuss that a little bit too. I'm not sure that's always the truth. But that's where all the money is, so continue to push them into insurance and all that. But that's a little bit of another story. But so overall, if we don't change the way that we're doing things somehow, some way, then we're not going to be in the best place as we move forward in the future when it comes to the older adult population, and we're not prepared.
Yeah. Speaking of healthcare, can you, like, with this older population, like there's the healthcare system itself, right? And then there's preventative healthcare.
Right.
And me, as a personal trainer, I like to say that we are the front lines of healthcare.
You are.
Right? And then, obviously the doctors and stuff should be there. We need them there as well. They're doing the things that they're supposed to do. How do we make sure that us on the front lines, and the healthcare system itself, the doctors, the nurses, and all those people that help them when accidents do happen, how do we work together better, and what needs to happen, and how do we do that? And
that, like I said, I did do a presentation yesterday for Houston Methodist, very large hospital system here in Houston. I've done one here at 2 other PT clinics. So I've been blessed in some ways to really kind of push myself in some of these doctor's offices. And I think they really are surprised about how much knowledge and understanding I have of what we are doing for our older adults when it comes to the training and keeping them safe with contraindications and correctives and exercise, corrective exercise more or less, and those types of things. So I think being able to open up the forums to connection, open up the forums to allow it in, and then actually trusting the other practitioner whenever something goes down to reach out to them. You know, if somebody says, hey, Philip, I got this guy and he's got diabetes and he's dealing with some high blood pressure, do you think you could train him safely, you know, with his high blood pressure and make sure he stays, you know, going well? And then y'all get on a email chain, which takes not much time at all. And then now you have continuity of care. So now we're able to work together, which I think we should all be doing. Allied healthcare is where we should go. There's some direct to patient doctors that I actually work with that are functional medicine specific, and he refers people to me almost weekly. And he's over here at UTMB, Dr. John Johnston. Great guy, but I found him because I was studying functional medicine. And the reason I went towards functional medicine, I went towards functional exercise and the buzzword functional is because to me, it's a personal approach to applying your knowledge and understanding to the person in front of you, whether that's a client or a patient. And I found him because I wanted to go in there and learn more about me. If I want these tests done, I need him to be able to say, hey, I'll do these tests rather than having to go get insurance to cover it or anything else. I need all this done. Will you do this? And that's the difference. Somebody comes into me and says, oh, I need to work on my balance and coordination. I'm like, we're going to focus on weight loss and just muscle strength. I'm not really doing them justice, and now they feel like they haven't been heard, and now they're going to leave maybe the industry forever and not get the support they need. So I think healthcare needs to look at it from a holistic approach. You can look at CAM, complementary or alternative medicines, those types of things as well. All those approaches should be used as well, whether that's acupuncture, chiropractic, whatever it is. All those things need to be added and melded in, and we all need to communicate better. And, if there could be, over time, more or less like an actual database to where the client is in control or the patient is in control, and we all have to communicate about them, and we all get to sign a whatever it is, non-disclosure agreement or, go through HIPAA and all those things, and we get to learn about what our client's dealing with, that would be just amazing. That would, to me, would be like the mecca of what we could do for our actual patients and our clients.
Do you think that's possible?
I 100% think it's possible. We stop ourselves from living because we put too many levels on stuff. I've worked for the government for almost 20 years. I'll retire from the Coast Guard this year. And the one thing that I see consistently is there's too many pieces of paperwork to get to the real answer. So 90% of the time, we don't get to the real answer. We get to the easy answer. Mm-hmm. And with a client, if you could just start, it could just be one. Think about our social media sites. How much can you go gather from that already? You already know all my personal information. Right. If you want to know me, it's pretty easy. You can pretty much find it all. So, at this point, why don't we actually start to try to apply it in a way that's going to help society, that's going to help our patients and our clients, rather than just focusing in on profit and trying to be like, I'm the smartest guy in the room and I'm not going to tell you anything. And that's what I see a lot of times.
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of ego, I'm the smartest guy in the room, and money.
Yeah.
Right? There's definitely...
it's both.
Yeah, it's a combination of both those. You use the allied healthcare. So is that I've not heard that before.
So allied healthcare would be like where we all come together and we speak about that patient or that client, about their health in general. If she had a stroke or okay, she was training with me before the stroke. She had these capabilities. I have a good idea. We did an assessment, so I know where she was at. You could reach out to the neurologist and tell them hey, she did all these things. She had this capability. So this may be where we kind of try to go back to when you put her into OT and PT. Just saying. That could be an opportunity.
That sounds awesome because you know how often I have to talk to a client about what they have going on. I need to talk to this doctor first and then this one and then that one. And then once I get that information, I need to go back to the first one. And it's very difficult.
I'll tell you this right now, unfortunately, and a little bit of a soapbox for me, but my dad's, like I said, he's a liver transplant patient. This is a very high need, a very high touch. He had a quadruple bypass, basically had a metal heart valve put in and had to start taking these medications. But every time we go to the hospital, which has been not hundreds, but over 30, I would say, easy, since 2015, they don't know. They don't have his data in front of them. They don't have the information about him in front of them. No matter what type of that doctor it is, they got to call everybody and all that. And to me, that is not fair. We're not doing the job we're supposed to be doing because we're not keeping continuity of care. You don't understand what he's been going through. I have to go to 15 other doctors. And if it's an emergency situation, there's enough money. They're getting paid enough to where they should have a good enough database to where it all talks to each other and we can actually have some sort of system that's streamlined. So, okay, he's a liver transplant patient. Oh, he's got to have his anti-rejection medicines. His blood sugar's been off and on, but he's not diabetic, so we're not going to give him insulin. And just those types of things, if you would actually apply it to a personal approach to the individual, we wouldn't have these same problems.
I agree 100%. My mom, I've been going back and forth with her at the hospital since December recently because of some health issues. And it's like every time we go, it's like we're starting over again for like fresh start. And I'm like, dude, like, how do y'all not know this? Oh, yeah, have you done this? Have you done this? I'm like, we did that last time. Oh, y'all did that? Okay. And I'm like, dude, come on, man.
What if we did that for our clients, Philip?
Yeah.
Oh, they quit.
Exactly.
Like they'd leave.
Yeah. It's just like, dude, like, yeah, continuity of care is so important.
Like if I don't remember my client told me they were going on vacation, like 3 weeks ago, they're mad at me.
Yeah, I know.
And then they go to their doctor who they're paying thousands of dollars just to walk in the door to get 9 minutes of their time. That's the average. It's like 9 to 16 minutes is like the average doctor visit. They're, the doctor's okay. It's all good. You like are with me every day and you've told me 1,000 things. I remembered that you rode an elephant in 73, but you're mad at me. You're mad at me because
I do agree with that.
But I feel for you, man. I can feel the pain in your voice when you say that.
Super. Yeah, it's very, very frustrating every time.
And I'm sorry for that, man. I really am frustrated about how badly we are managing what we call our healthcare system. It's really a sick maintenance system, is what it is, because it's not keeping people healthy. You go to the hospital to die.
Yeah.
I lost an aunt and uncle to COVID, both of them under 70 years old. My uncle was 63. My aunt was 57. My mom died like 2 months later and during COVID in 2020. So it's like I've been in and out of these hospitals a lot, and they are not doing justice, especially based off what they're getting paid. And it's not the doctors and nurses. I will never say that.
Right.
They're overworked. It's just like, teachers. Like, there's just another industry. Like, they're just overworked, and we put the wrong emphasis in our society in the wrong places, and we do not care as much about our day-to-day lives and our actual ability to connect as humans, and that frustrates me. And it's just, that's why I'm so driven. Like, to grow what we're doing at Trifitness, and to also I want to go and be a lobbyist. I want to be in D.C. I want to be up there saying, no, you didn't answer this. Why didn't you vote on this bill? You didn't even show up. I'm paying you to do your job. You didn't even come in. If I didn't show up to train my clients, do I get paid? No, right? And so those types of things really do, drive me to not only be a trainer, not only be a business owner, but also to be a beacon, hopefully, and as we grow our influence, be able to have a little bit of a bigger bat whenever I step up to the plate and say, hey, like, we need to fix this, and we can.
Yeah, it's a major problem. We've had a couple of doctors on actually this podcast that have spoken on the system. One actually is I don't know if you're direct primary care.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
100%, yeah.
And that I've learned a lot about that recently. I actually am recently a patient of direct primary care myself.
So I have been as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called MDVIP is what I had to use.
I get probably something very similar.
Yeah, it's like an online portal that you pay them directly,
yes,
like quarterly, and then they'll see you as much as they need to.
Yeah, for this one, it's monthly.
Okay,
we
just do quarterly.
Yeah, you just pay a monthly fee. It's very affordable.
Yeah.
And you go as much as you want. Actually, very shortly after I signed up on it, I ended up canceling my insurance, actually.
Yeah.
And I went direct primary care. It's much more affordable. I get way more access to the doctor. Shortly after I started, my first appointment was like 2 hours long, where they're actually getting real, similar to yourself. Right. You said this 90-minute assessment. I did the same thing with an actual MD, like a doctor.
And they empower you.
Yes.
You want to get engaged.
Yeah.
You're not afraid. Yeah,
we covered every issue that I've ever been through, family history, all that stuff. About 2 weeks later, I actually got a terrible case of poison ivy. I don't know if you ever had poison ivy before.
No, it's not good.
It was all over my neck, my legs. It was awful. I didn't know what it was at first. So I just texted my doctor directly 5 minutes later. Hey, this is what's going on. This is what I think it is because of this. And I was like, you know what? I was trimming some trees the other day.
And now you know.
And now I know what it is. She prescribed me what I needed to be prescribed, told me what to do.
Yeah.
Easy.
Like, why can't we be doing that on a large scale already?
You didn't have to go and fight with UTMB for hours upon hours. Yeah. It's just that's great.
Yeah, you wait for an hour and a half for a 3-minute appointment, and then you're treated like you're a burden.
No,
like, why did you come here?
Yeah, they tuck you off in a chair, and okay, we'll probably get a room for you. It's like, dude, this sucks.
Yeah, no, and then I see it, but I think, my whole ultimate goal, and I was even telling the clients I was doing an assessment for earlier, is my goal is to fight for the good, not fight against the bad. if we can do that enough, if we can continue to fight for the good instead of trying to focus our energy on the bad, we're going to be a little bit louder as time goes forward. And I think we spend so much time focusing on what's bad instead of fighting for what's good, is we don't make progress. And, you know, one of the questions on the expectations regarding aging is like, do you find yourself worrying more as you get older? But worry is the ultimate waste of time, the ultimate waste of your life, because what are you taking away from that you could be doing by worrying about what could happen? You know, it's not just the worry itself. It's like you're taking away from your family and your friends in the moment in time, the only thing we have to worry about something that's probably never going to happen.
It's an opportunity cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you flip it, you just flip it and say, okay, if this is worrying me, I need to do something about it. And then I fix it, and then I don't worry anymore.
Yeah,
Move on.
And then, you know, what's really funny about that, this is what I often talk to people about, is it's step one to the cycle of good. Because we always say, when you exercise, you feel good. When you feel good, you eat good. And when you eat good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you exercise more.
100%.
And it's kind of the same thing.
Yep.
And what you're talking about with focusing on the good, very similar to focusing on what you can do, not what you can't. I want to focus on your abilities, not your inabilities.
100%. Capabilities, not inabilities. You know, don't let, you know, an accident become a disability. You know, I say that to my clients often. It's just like, make sure you stay engaged, make sure you stay strong, test your capabilities. If something doesn't feel right, tell me. We can add this in, or we can change this, or we can make it more challenging in this way, or we could make it easier in this way, whatever you need.
Yeah, we often say, saying that I use is a lot of these things are two-way doors. I actually heard this from a Jeff Bezos podcast.
Yeah.
Actually, he talked about it, the two-way doors. A lot of decisions in business, in your life and stuff, a lot of them are two-way doors. People have so much anxiety, you're so worried about it. So he says, whatever it is, even if you disagree, commit to it anyways, walk through the door. It's the wrong door, walk back out and go to the next one.
100%. Yeah, I actually use something similar called Tim Ferriss fear setting. So, you know Tim Ferriss?
I know Tim Ferriss, but I've not heard of fear setting.
So one of his, I think he only has one TED Talk, but his TED Talk was on what basically is called fear setting. And it's almost the same process. It's saying, you know, where's Philip at today? And where does Philip want to go? Okay, and you look at that, and then you measure what it would take for you if you tried to go after that to get back to where you are today.
Can you say that again?
All right. So say let's you just use only the greatest,
okay.
Right? So you have one location, you want to have 10 locations. All right. You decide, okay, if I go after these 10 locations, what's going to happen if I fail? You're going to end up back where you are.
Okay. I got you.
So what is the cost? You need to measure the cost to try for those 10. And if you can afford that cost, and getting back to where you are is just basically means you didn't.
Because you're just going to go back to your baseline.
Right. You're already there.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a huge thing. So I was active duty, like I said, I didn't really say that, but I was active duty in the Coast Guard for 13 and a half. And I decided that I was going to leave at 10. And you can get full retirement at 20 years if you stay active, meaning you get a paycheck for the rest of your life. So I'd have been 40 years old, you know, making over $3,000 a month the rest of my life for nothing, never going anywhere. But I had to make that decision. That was one of the processes I used with fear setting. I could stay in the reserves like I am now and just go back active if this didn't work out. You know, and I just took the leap smartly, started in my garage with a little bit of equipment, didn't spend a whole lot of money. And what's the worst that could happen? I just sign another contract and go back to active duty. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm going after it.
A lot of things are no-brainers, but we, for whatever reason, force our brain into the equation.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I tell my clients a lot of times is less thinky, more doey.
100%. You know, I say we live in a casino. I tell people you're living in a casino right now. You need to be aware of that. So you have trillions, honestly, of people and touch points trying to get your attention. And they want your money and your time and your attention. That's what they want. So you need to be proactively working to try to avoid that. So if you don't do those things, you're being pulled in every other direction except for the one you want to go in.
The one you probably need to go
100%.
Yeah, we just discussed this with my girlfriend actually recently. She left her job to help us out at OTG, and it was a tough decision. But at the end of the day, it's pretty much what you said. You know, she was so concerned about what everyone else was doing and what they cared about. She was missing on what she wanted. And our new motto now is choose happiness.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what all's going on, who wants what. We will choose happiness for us. whatever that looks like.
Yeah, and you can always figure it out after that. If you have a strong
100%.
enough basis, if you have strong enough values, you know where you're at, you can always figure it out.
Yeah, you only came this far. You didn't only come this far to come this far, right?
100%.
So we've been through harder things. You've been through harder things in your life. If something happens, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Falling back to only owning 2 gyms, like, okay, ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, this was my dream for so long, and now it's like, yeah. And you asked me a little bit, what are we going to do next? Kind of how we're going to move forward. So I'm going to franchise. So that's the big thing for me. And I was torn for a while. I've been studying it for probably 2 years. Read a couple different books. Read the book by a guy that started a company called iFranchise. It's like a franchise broker type deal. They'll help you get it set up, and just studying it and reading different disclosure documents and stuff to understand more about what it is. And again, kind of like I go back to before, if I don't do this, if I don't try to find a way to where we make fitness after 50 more accessible, more real, more applicable, more effective, right, then I'm not going to be okay with myself. I'm not going to be okay with the rest of my life. And what's the worst that could happen? We just don't make it, and I fall back to being a really good coach that has 2 good gyms and 300 members and just love my life like I am already. Like,
you're already doing that.
I already am. So, I've been doing the work to start building out the franchise. I systemized my gym from day one. I had a system from the get-go. I could train somebody pretty much the day that I started, which was big for me. And I learned this, in 2013, going to a lot of different fitness conferences and things like that. But it taught me that these are the steps I need to take these steps, do the work. And this is just like you were saying before, kind of like with your girlfriend, like stepping out. This is the only decision I can make now. I don't see another one.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you started that way, because we didn't. But we're getting there. And actually, speaking with you over the past week or so has really gotten me thinking a lot. And we've always, the gym currently is way more, our OTG is way more than we ever expected it to be. And then after seeing the things that you talked about and everything, which is just crazy, amazing, you're like, yeah, we're franchising. And you say it with such confidence. And I was like, dang. Like,
I'm doing it.
Yeah, and that's it's crazy that you can just say it so easily, because that's a very difficult thing. Once again, going back to how your frame around like elderly adults and then everyone else's is fearful, where yours is confidence, is the same thing here. Anytime I hear someone about starting a franchise, it's like red tape here, money this,
are they
budget
gonna
that.
Yeah, are they going to tarnish like what I've already made and things like that?
It's all negativity, where with you, it's just like,
well, it's faith, man.
Yeah.
That's how I operate. I think God led me to where I am today. I've been through a lot in my life. And when you're tested and over and over and over again, you just realize, like, there's nothing that can really be as bad as it's been. And that's really the truth. And I operate that way. I 100% operate in faith. I'm not fearful of anything. When I die, it's not going to be my problem. I mean, that's the truth. It's going to be whoever's left, and they're just going to have to learn how to deal with that. That's just how strong it is for me. And I've tested myself in many, many ways over the years, and that has a lot to do with my confidence and kind of how I am. But, there's a reason I have 175 people coming through my door, 88% of the time using all of their memberships. That gives you confidence too, right? That type of thing, and you continue to prove it, then you've got to use it. I think, most people do not use what God gives them. They don't use 8% of it. They don't even use 10% of it. And I'm going to try to use as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, I'm confident that you guys are going to change this industry in people over 50. And, I'm excited to watch the journey. We're in the same very local area, and I appreciate what you're doing for fitness in our community. What I tell our guys often is that every time someone goes to LA Fitness and hires a trainer, you did that client a disservice by letting them go over there. And I know that you feel the same way.
Yeah.
And it takes more people like yourself in our industry doing things the right way, that actually care and make sure these clients are moving in the right direction for the right reasons, to make a difference in our community.
Yeah, and I say the same thing with you. You were one of the first people and the only people that really, when I first started, that I thought had something that was comparable, that I thought you were coming from a place of respect, you're coming from a place of actual knowledge, coming from a place of experience and passion to actually change lives. And I said that from day one. And I researched, believe me, you've met me, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. Like, that's just kind of how I am. I'm ADHD, I just I'm kind of voracious when it comes to reading and podcasts and books and stuff, but you guys are doing it right as well. You're really making a difference, and you care, and you're doing your best, and that's all we can do, right? None of us are perfect. None of us are going to have everything down pat, but the fact we show up every day and we're putting our heart and soul into it, and we're trying to lead by example, we're trying to, train our trainers and train our coaches in a way that we feel like is going to be safe, feel like that's going to be good for them. That's all important too. If you're not taking care of your employees, you're not going very far. And that's a big deal with us is making sure that from the top down, it comes from love, it comes respect. And, I think we got something good here in the local community that people maybe don't really know about. But, between your gym and our gym, we really are top of the top.
They're going to know about it soon.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no doubt. Like it's going to happen. And you guys are going to do the same thing in Houston. There's no doubt. As y'all continue to grow, it is going to flourish.
Yeah, it's going to happen for sure.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all that, because I know what I do know about you is that you probably have done the research and figured out and looked into how things are done across various places and industries and things like that.
I enjoy that, actually. I enjoy going into other gyms and kind of just saying, hey, what do you got? You guys got a trainer? You got this? And I don't tell them who I am always, but
sure.
You just kind of get to know them. And there's people trying, but I feel like, there's not a lot of heart a lot of times, and that's what they're missing.
Yeah, that's a conversation that could go for another hour.
Yeah.
I feel very deeply that people are doing the health things for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of bad stuff in our community, not necessarily in our community, but online.
In fitness.
In fitness, in the industry is the word that I was looking for. But it is unfortunate. But once again, you said it. Focus on the good.
Yeah.
Double down on the good.
100%.
And that is a bigger bat to bring to the plate.
100%.
Than focusing on the bad.
It is. I agree. And as we continue to grow, as we continue to franchise, I think that it's just going to give us more an opportunity to share that love and to share that light and to be the person that, not just impacts my local community, but also steps out of the comfort zone again, because that's really where you learn. You learn outside of that comfort zone. So continue to push yourself.
And you have to do it over.
That's the hardest part.
Again.
That really is accepting it.
Sure.
It's like I was listening to your podcast with Dr. Christina, and we work with Elevated PT a lot as well. And talking about your marathon, it's like I ran one. I'll never run another one. I'm going to run a half, I think, next year.
Okay.
Nice. I did the Coast Guard half, and then I ran one over. I was supposed to run one in Mount Desert Island up in Maine. It was supposed to be the most beautiful marathon on the East Coast, and they canceled it.
Oh my gosh.
It was COVID. It was 21.
Okay.
And it was like 42 days before the run, though, so I was peaked. Everything was on. We still went to vacation up there and
got in a little
Bar Harbor. Yeah, it was nice. But then I did a marathon out in Dallas, so every bit of it sucked, but I did it.
I'm going for my revenge soon. So if you ever want to catch a run, let me know.
Yeah, congrats, man. Yeah, just keep it up. Like I said, and the one thing that got me too that you said in that podcast, just listening to it, was the amount of training that it took. It's another job. Yeah. It is another job while you're training for a marathon. It really is.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours. A lot of hours on the road, a lot of miles, a lot of nutrition prep, hydration preparation,
A lot of lonely miles, too.
Yeah,
like you're out there just like, a lot of times it's hard to get somebody like, hey, man, you want to go run 3 miles with me at 7:30 pace?
Definitely not.
Yeah, and the thing that really got me, we're getting a little off track, but the thing that really... One thing that I wasn't expecting, the amount of clothes that you go through, dude. Oh, my God. Because it's so hot. Yeah. And then, like, they're just, like, super, like, drenched in sweat. And you gotta change and,
I agree.
And it's just like you have this huge pile of sweaty clothes because you're running 5-6 days a week and it's 94 degrees outside.
Yeah. I overheated twice.
Really?
I overheated over in Seabrook on those trails on the dirt. And I could see my truck. I couldn't walk to my truck.
Oh my gosh.
It was bad.
Yeah.
But I had done like one of those infinity floats the night before, and I didn't think about it, and it threw off my electrolytes.
Okay.
And I hit like mile 9, and I was like, oh, something ain't right. And I was like, and like it just led. And I was like, took me forever. But no, running is its own beast. It'll just like owning a business, running a marathon, things like that will teach you almost as much about yourself than most.
I learned
things.
a lot for sure. I've been, we're in what are we in April? I've been on 2 runs since then.
I agree.
I'll pick back up on. I do want to run the marathon next year. I'm gonna hit that goal. But Dude, appreciate the
Yeah,
knowledge,
appreciate
all the inputs. Is there anything else you want to say? You want to shout out more, Trifitness, where you guys can find you guys?
Yeah.
You know, the demographic of people listening to this may or may not be in that age group, but maybe they know someone, maybe they have a family member, right?
Yeah.
That kind of falls into your specialty.
I say 100%. If you want to make your grandparents or your parents' lives a little bit better and teach them what they can do to maintain their capabilities, send them our way. We offer a free intro. Trifitnessgym.com, easiest way /get-started. You can go there. We're at 2417 Bay Area Boulevard here in Houston, and we're also at 607 South Friendswood Drive, Suite 17 in Friendswood is our second location. And just hit us up. The biggest thing is just keep moving. And, you know, after 50 is just a little bit harder a lot of times, and it just takes a little bit more understanding of how to adapt it. And if you're a trainer out there, you're somebody's listening to this, and you want to know more about training over 50, hit me up. And I'd love to get you to understand a little bit more and push you towards some of the resources, because there are a lot of good certifications out there now. And this is the demographic with the most money and the most time. So honestly, if you're really trying to make more money and you don't really know how to do that, become a functional aging specialist, and it could change your career for sure.
Awesome, man. Great advice. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Philip.
Hope to follow up and learn more about or follow along with your franchise journey, man. It's super exciting.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
No problem, man. Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys later.
Peace out.